Good afternoon, Louisville, or still morning, Louisville. I am Lyndon, Pryor, President and CEO of the Louisville Urban League, and welcome to Listen Up, the PowerShip podcast. We told you all last week or so that we were going to be doing these quick um, lives to talk about what's going on in and around the city, and most importantly, connecting the issues of the day to the vote. The Power Shift is a campaign that we have launched along with many partners around the city to really turn out the vote um, in November. Because this election is critical. And I know we hear that all the time about every election is the most important. And in some sense, that is true. And that seems cliche, but the reality is the next election is the most important election. But particularly for our community, this election is critically important. There are a lot of things and a lot of people on the ballot who have a critical say in where our city, where our state, and ultimately where our country is headed. And so we want to make sure that you are as informed as possible about what's going on and that you understand. How the different issues that are on the ballot or that are happening in our community are impacted by what is ultimately on the ballot. So we are going to do these things periodically over the next several months leading into the election to tackle lots of different topics to make sure that people are aware and informed of what we have going on in Louisville and in Kentucky more broadly. And we're going to be joined by some wonderful and awesome guests and partners of the league. And so today I'm excited to be joined by Gungu Njuguna, who is with policy strategist with ACLU Kentucky. Gungu's been a longtime partner with us on lots of different things. And we're going to spend a few minutes just talking about an upcoming event that we have on June 16th, our community commitment event where we're going to be meeting here at the Urban League from 6 to 7:30 to talk about the community commitment, formerly the consent decree that was issued by the Department of Justice, and kind of where things stand now and what we are looking to do. So, Kungu, thank you for joining us,
Of course.
and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So let's Yeah, no, absolutely. And so let's just start right here, right? Like, so many people may remember, and some people may not remember that we had this thing called a consent decree. And now we have what the city and the mayor are calling a community commitment. Can you kind of give folks kind of the cliff notes on, like, all right, what was it? Where did we start? And how did we get to where we are today?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of probably your followers know is obviously in 2020 we had a lot of protests around the abuses of police, and obviously we specifically had the Breonna Taylor incident here. And under federal law, the Department of Justice, the DOJ, has the authority to investigate police departments for violating people's constitutional rights, called pattern and practices. And so the DOJ came in, they investigated LMPD, and they issued a report that said that we believe, based on our investigation, based on all the incidents, that you are engaged in a pattern or practice of violating people's constitutional rights, and in particular, Black residents of Louisville, Kentucky. And so what happens then is the city and the DOJ then begin to negotiate what is known as a consent decree. And what that is a piece of paper entered into court that says that the city agrees to these reforms. And so the city had negotiated with the DOJ, had agreed to a consent decree. And then obviously we had an election. We have a DOJ under the current Trump administration that walked that back. So that consent decree never got entered into court and never got signed. And that case now is officially dismissed. So instead of a consent decree where we would have had a federal judge and an independent monitor picked by the DOJ and the city to oversee those reforms, we have what's known as the community commitment. And the community commitment was created by the mayor and Chief Humphrey that, for the most part, adopts some of the consent decree. So that's what we have. It's not a court document. It's not judicially ordered. It is essentially an agreement by the city that says that we will move forward with these reforms.
Okay. And so just backing up a little bit, because the pattern and practice findings of the DOJ, though, they outlined a lot of different things. And I think it's important for people to know that the investigation that took place used pretty much all of LMPD's data, right? Because I think going back to that, I think there were some people who were just like, oh, they came in and they just made stuff up. No, they went in and they literally pulled files from LMPD, investigations from LMPD, cases, things that they themselves had documented, and said, hey, based off of what you have done and what you have shown us, we have found these issues. And so I think that's important. But particularly in terms of the actual findings, there were one of the major things, and again, there were a lot of things in there, but I think one of the major things that we have talked about is there were specific populations identified as, historically speaking, LMPD has a problem in policing these groups. And so what were those groups?
Well, obviously it said, as I said earlier, obviously in our Black community, that LMPD had a pattern or practice of discriminating against Black residents. And we also saw that LMPD's interaction with people who have mental health issues and substance use disorder was another group of where the evidence showed that interaction was improper and could be better. And the consent decree laid out a whole list of reforms to say, here's how Louisville can do better responding to those incidences.
Okay. And I raise that because I think what's important is thinking about some of the recent issues that we've had, right? So 2 months ago, we had the killing of Caitlin Hall. And then just a couple of weeks ago, it was the killing of Mr. Nijuguna, both of whom were suffering mental health episodes, right? And so for our audience, I think it's important to recognize that, like, all of this talk and rhetoric around the consent decree and the community commitment are absolutely tangibly and directly connected to what we are seeing as a result of certain practices happening within LMPD and literally impacting people's lives, right? Like, these things aren't disconnected. They're not abstract. They actually matter in the real lives of people every single day. And so on the 16th, when we get together and we talk about the community commitment, what's the plan? What are we going to be sharing with community, and why is this meeting important?
I think hopefully it's to do some of what we're doing here is to educate people about what happened, where we've been, and what's next. Like, where do we go after the consent decree has been dismissed? Where do we go from here as a community to make sure reforms are actually completed and that we never are in a place where LMPD is investigated by the DOJ? And a chance also, hopefully, I hope a lot of people show up, and I want people to ask questions. This stuff can be really hard to digest and understand. So this is a place for people to get their questions answered.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that we are asking the city to do, most importantly, is to codify the community commitment with some additions, with some alterations into law. And so what does that fundamentally mean? When we say we want to codify the community commitment into law, what are we talking about?
So as I said earlier, right now, the community commitment is just policy, and that policy can change at the whim of whatever administration is in the office. And police reform is too important to leave to just that. So by codifying it and making it into law, by passing it into ordinance, it ensures that regardless of administration, from years from now, that police reform will take place in Louisville, Kentucky. And so we need Metro Council, the 26 folks who sit down there at Metro Hall, to pass this into law. That is what we are asking, with what you said, with a couple changes to make sure it's more like the original consent decree.
Yeah. And part of the reason why that's super important is also because it gives a measure of authority to some other body. Because right now, with community commitment, there is nothing that actually compels change. It is a document that is on paper, and if the mayor decides to go through with certain things, then he can. But if they decide that, you know what, we don't want to do that, then there's nothing that actually compels them to change. There's no authority the way there would have been with the formalized consent decree, where you have a judge in place. There's currently no authority that says, hey, this is what you have to do. And so I think that that is a really important case, in that by creating an ordinance, we are saying, hey, we want Metro Council and potentially others, but at least Metro Council to be the authoritative body. Is that correct? Is that
Yeah. No, you are exactly correct. Had we had a consent decree, let's say the independent monitor and Louisville LMPD have a dispute, if they can't agree to figure that out, a federal judge would have come in and said, here's what you're going to do next. We are missing that oversight, and we are asking that Metro Council, to your point, or some other body, be able to decide like how that dispute gets fixed. And we don't have that now. And it's important that we do. It puts teeth into this reform.
Yeah, and I think that's another part to that is many people have probably heard about the monitor, right? Like, so we have a monitor in place that was chosen. It's a company by the name of Alifa that is doing this work. And their job, at least as I understand it, is to come in and verify that, that their job is multiple things. But one of the big things is to make sure that LMPD is actually doing the things that they say they're going to do, in the commitment that the policies are changing, that the practices are changing, that things are changing the way, according to the community commitment has laid it out. And also supposed to be checking with us in community to say, hey, are you actually seeing these things show up in real time? Are you seeing that those practices take place? Or are you still having problems? Are there still issues that you are finding with LMPD in their practices? But right now, there's nothing that they don't have any real teeth to do anything, right? Like, so if they find out that LMPD is not doing something, or that things are not lining up the way that they are, there are no real teeth to say, hey, you all have to change, or you have to do one thing or the other. Is that accurate?
I 100% agree. I think what they will do is issue a report, which will come later in this year, to give an update. And so the public will be known, but they don't have the authority to force LMPD to make the reforms. There is no enforcement mechanism that Alifa has, and there's no enforcement mechanism that anybody has in Metro government right now.
Mm. And so these are the things that we want to see change, because ultimately these are things that are going to make us better as a city. It is going to create safer opportunities for LMPD, and safer policies and practices for everyone that is under their administration and all of that. So we really want to see something strong and structured. And I want to acknowledge that there have been a lot of people working on this, that this isn't just the Urban League and the ACLU, but there have been lots of community organizations and lots of community individuals who have put a lot of effort and sweat and just kind of education into this to make it happen. And so we're grateful for those people who have really contributed to get us to this point, at a place where hopefully we can get something more substantial from community. Kungu, how do you connect all of this? Obviously, we're here under this idea of the power shift and really connecting this stuff to the vote. How do you see this connection to actual voter turnout and what is happening at the ballot box in November?
Well, I think, people should always vote. I've been a poll worker now for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's one of the best experiences that I have, but I also wish that I would see more people show up. Now is the time to let our elected officials know where you stand on this issue. And if they don't vote in the way in which you like, or stand on the issues the way that you feel, you should come to the ballot box and let them know that. Voting is important. We are here today as a result of an election. I mean, let's be honest about that. The national election changed the administration, and that led to the DOJ abdicating its role in this way, and that's why we're here today. An election had a direct result of why Louisville's in the position it is today.
Absolutely. So just as a reminder, so June 16th, from 6 to 7:30 at the Louisville Urban League, you can go and RSVP on our website. to just let us know that you're coming, because we do have limited space. So we want to make sure that we get everybody in. All those organizations, there are a lot of partners. So it is the ACLU that is partnering with us, but it's also Black and others who will be participating that day. I will tell you that if you have not joined or made the pledge to vote, please do so. You can do that at lul.org/vote. And we need as many people signed up as possible. Our goal is to turn out 52,000 Black voters and to increase overall voter turnout in November by at least 3%. And so we need people to sign up and pledge to vote with us and to join with us in helping to turn out the vote, because this election is crucially important. We look forward to seeing you, Kungu. Thank you again for your partnership. And we will see you all on the 16th.
Yeah, see everybody.
Y'all take care.